through the general direction.
Direction.
The first thing is the
Okay, guess we'll start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. So we don't even have amendments to the agenda on here, so. Let's do the roll call first, and then everyone, I guess. Yeah, the agenda.
Councilmember Blunt.
Here.
Councilmember Bisser.
Here.
Councilmember Happy.
Here.
Councilmember Collins.
Here.
Councilmember Seaver. Councilmember Seaver. Oh, he's just a little big crap.
Here, sorry.
Councilmember Pruitt
Here.
and the Mayor Wood.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Tom Cranlett.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Dwayne Longbigger.
oh, absent.
Budget Committee Member Courtney Heilman.
Present.
And Budget Committee Member Nathan Jones.
Absent.
Budget Committee Member Connie Patashio.
Yes.
Budget Committee Member Butch Miller.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Cheryl Price.
Here.
So you guys got your phones turned off. Who is? Okay, so I think even if, can we do an amendment to the agenda?
We can,
It's
yeah.
not on there, okay, so. We need to amend the agenda to include, approving the minutes of the May 21st. 2025 meeting.
I move to approve the minutes for the committee meeting.
Oh, we need to add it to the,
We need to add.
we need to add it first
Yeah,
to the
vote
agenda.
to amend the agenda and then we can vote to amend the minutes.
Minutes of May 21st public meeting.
Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor, oh, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So now I need a motion to approve the minutes of the May 21st. 2025 budget meeting.
I move to approve the meetings of May 21st, the minutes of the May 21st, 2025 budget meeting.
Second. It's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Need a few minutes to read it real quick. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Okay, so since we've had we've kind of had a little bit of a pre-meeting, since we're gonna have to redo the budget, so we're probably not gonna get a lot done tonight. We're gonna discuss what direction we want the city administrator to go, or the budget whatever / finance officer to go, as far as setting the overhead, the materials and services and the overhead fees to the departments. But we will have a discussion with Sheldon since he's here, but should we do him first so we can go home, or?
We can,
That's not on.
Well, it's
on the back of your.
yeah, I mean, we gotta do the whole thing.
yeah,
We don't wanna waste Sheldon's time. He technically took the day off, so we'll be nice to him.
okay. So then so we'll start with this.
Yeah, we can do streets first.
Schmutz,
Yeah.
which would be well. But fully realizing that this whole discussion is gonna change once we decide, I mean, some of the numbers are gonna change once we decide. What we're gonna do with the percentages on the materials and services on the admin overhead. So. Okay. So are there, have 12? So are there any questions on the street fund?
So streets is pretty straightforward, same as last year. No major projects, at least through the streets fund, we did apply for the grant. Small cities grant for some street updates, but that's in the grants fund. It does have a percentage of the utilities director salary and benefits in here. That's really the biggest change. But other than that, it's pretty stable from last year.
Any questions? Anything extra you want to share, Sheldon, about streets? Okay. So then we'll go.
I have something.
We almost got away from it.
I'm sorry. It really bothers me, so I gotta tell you,
All right.
I'm just sorry. In the street fund, the actual revenue is not for August. It's got more revenue than you're putting in here, and as I told you, Jordan, it's all through the whole budget, so. If you're reporting revenue for 331 and expenses for 429, how can you even do a budget? Because you're not showing what we made. You're showing what we expended and 429, but not what we made. And then in some of them, even in materials and services, it's usually based on 331. So to me, this whole budget isn't projecting what needs to be projected. That's where I'll stop with.
So I do have a question that goes with that. When we go back to fund, tab 6 on the all funds totals, we do have some proposed. Totals, is there a reason why those didn't carry out through the document? I mean, I know we don't have the audits done, so we don't have a,
What do you mean?
so you have some proposed revenue totals there.
Correct, yeah.
And those could be spread throughout the document, or is our document, is the budget completely solely based on the audit? For the, like the beginning balance?
The actual is, but the budget is the estimate.
I see, okay.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Sorry. So, did you wanna address her? Is there anything?
I mean, I ran, the date of April 29th is when I ran the reports.
Not included. Running the reports, you gotta have the date you want it to say for it. And it says for April 31st or March 31st. But some of them are for April, so it's very confusing.
And well, let's wait till the end, because we're gonna have to do it, we're gonna have a redo anyway, so we'll see if we can work that out at the end, okay. Next.
Oh, quick.
Yeah.
Bernard does have his hand up, sorry.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I know that last time we had a discussion about use of city property for electric, water and sewer, but the streets doesn't pay for rent, use of space.
They have not.
No. What's the rationale behind that?
I do not know. I don't know what the,
Because streets don't have the money to
Yeah,
put forward.
Yeah.
Cause there's no revenue.
There's no revenue
Streets.
on it
Except for the.
well, Mary Ann might be able to answer
it's not
that.
really any-
Well, that's what I was gonna say, the street has no revenue other than the tax. So, and that tax has to go for streets, not
Got it.
overhead.
I understand. So I guess the difference is that the other ones are the enterprise fund,
The
they
enterprise
actually
fund,
make
yeah.
money versus this being,
Right.
you know, more of a maintenance of.
Pass.
Correct.
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Bernard,
Okay, so I guess my question was the public crossing for Herman Creek. Did we actually fix that?
No, we did not. We got a small cities grant for $100,000 to start the project. It ballooned every time we met with the railroad. Project ended up being $500,000. We didn't have the funds to complete it. We ended up giving the grant back to ODOT because we couldn't complete it, and we had to eat the $28,000 in engineering fees, which were paid off this last year or this current year.
Okay, and we have no intention on trying to go for that again. Not that I'm advocating for it. That's what I want to understand.
Not right now.
Okay, All right,
Maybe
go ahead.
He said maybe in the future.
Yeah.
But not right now.
Okay. And then as far as what Councilmember Bump was saying, I don't see this 331. Is that from a report you pulled, Marianne, or what are you referring to when you say 331?
I requested the finances for March and for April. It gives me the detail line of the year-to-date actual. And that's what I'm referring to.
Okay,
I
so say again what you said earlier in your comment with regards to 331 versus 429. Now that helps me. Go ahead, please.
So at the top of the page, at the top of all of these funds, it says the actual is
Yeah.
420, is from 429, any page, it doesn't matter. It
Right.
says the actuals are from 429, 2021, and Marianne's
2025.
2025, I'm sorry, and Marianne's saying that Jordan's saying that's the date he pulled the reports. That does not necessarily the date of the
Report.
report itself. She's saying that some of the reports are from 331.
Some of the numbers are for 331 and some of the numbers are from 429. So you can't justify how you're doing a budget if you've got 331 numbers and 429
Okay,
expenses.
that helps me. So tell me again what's your explanation for that again, Jordan? If you said it, I missed it.
I put the date, I pulled the report. That's the date that's on there.
So how is that happening that we have some of these expenditures reflecting 331 and others not?
I'm gonna assume that because April wasn't closed out yet, there's missing, but
Okay, but, and then I have a question, how does that make it an actual if it's not, if it's, because. I don't know about anybody else, but when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at its actuals to 429, but if this is really only, if this is really only actuals to 331, I mean, that's like a month's difference, and so the numbers are gonna be divided.
Slightly off, yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like we should trust city staff in putting this budget together as far as that is concerned. They put a lot of time and effort in this and I'm sure there's an explanation for it. And I'm just. Those numbers are important, I agree, but we're making a plan for the future for next year. So I'm sure Jordan and the finance officer, I'm assuming, probably feel like the proposed budget is as presented, regardless of what actuals are and date. I mean, they know what the actuals are, right?
Mhm.
You know, they may not be actually reflected in this document.
Yeah,
And you
and
can-
we can rerun them. So when we meet next week, we have update numbers.
Jordan, Bernard, are you
I
done?
like that. Thank you.
Okay, are you done then?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think I'm really assuming too that it was just a timing issue when you were pulling the report. It
Yeah.
hadn't been closed out yet, and but at this point, we'll have numbers through. I mentioned 5/1, or would you have them all the way through the end of May?
Probably
31.
probably 431 or 430, whatever left hand.
4:30.
Yeah.
Got it.
Mr. Keller?
I'm sorry. I'm at a complete loss at why this is such a big deal. Like, I understand Marianne's point but the actuals are just a guide to give us an insight into the proposed numbers. I don't understand why we have to print out a whole new set of thousands of pages for this. Like, it's just
Sorry, I need to.
no, you're the important one here, so.
It won't be just for that. We are gonna have to print it anyways, because the numbers are gonna change based on the decisions we make later on the overhead and the administration fees. So it's gonna have to be reprinted.
So then please explain to me why we've spent 10 minutes discussing this, if it's gotta get reprinted anyways, and we're just calling out Jordan for making an error.
So if we can get that part fixed too, we can do a 2-for-1.
I would like to know why numbers change from one printing to the next. That would be good to know why.
Mr. Keller, I am not calling out Jordan, okay? These numbers are incorrect, and in order to fix a budget and prepare a budget, you have to know the correct numbers. and you forecast your 2 months, which is May and June, and then you start your new year forecasting. That's all I'm saying. If these numbers aren't correct, how do you forecast? And how do you make sure you got everything to your desire without having correct numbers? That's how you do a budget.
It's just basically showing up the numbers. I mean, because when you look, it's just basically showing up the numbers, and there's no, it's just. I mean, if they're only actuals of 3/31, then just put that date on as opposed to 4/21. I mean, that's just a simple thing because it makes what is actually have been spent, and you divide it by the number so that we're into the budget, and you look and you see, well, maybe we don't have enough in this fund or something. That's all it is. It's not a reflection.
Right.
Counselor Seeger has his hand up again.
Bernard,
Yeah, and just for what it's worth, Miss Clark had her hand up earlier, but I don't know, did you have something to add, Miss Clark?
who?
Our finance officer, her hand was up.
Yeah, I did, but then someone else kind of made my point, so I didn't want to. So I just want to, I know this is not necessarily my meeting, but I just wanted to add to the conversation. So we were talking about budget to actuals, and then we were talking about the actual next budget that we're creating. The dates on the budget itself, as in when Jordan pulled the reports, does not affect what the budget will be for next year unless we're projecting that there are things that are either planned to get done that won't get done. Like, that's the only way it affects it. The date, whether it's for 30 or 3/31, doesn't affect the budget that we're creating for next year. Yes, it's important that you have up-to-date numbers, but when this was started, and this will always be an issue unless you're going to create the budget the day before you present it, if you start working on it a month or two before, you're going to have the numbers that you pulled at that time. So that's why those numbers are there. But I'm so sorry, I forgot your name, but I don't think we should spend that much time kind of relitigating that piece of it. We've already acknowledged that that is what it is. But as far as the budget itself is concerned, I don't see how the date that he pulled the actuals actually affects the budget we're creating, which is a plan and an estimate for next year.
Understood.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Miss Clark. So the reason I raised my hand was in this back to the streets budget, we got a contingency for 49,000, which is a very large contingency given the whole budget is 194,000. That's 30% or something, or even more than that. Not 30, but it's a large. I just want to check in with Sheldon. I mean, we're leaving a lot of money on the table as contingency. Is there nothing in here that you think might need some more funding to be more successful for a streets program for the next fiscal year?
So we have 50,000 contingency. Would you like to use it, spend it on some kind of project? Or does it need to be spent, or do you want it left in contingency? As reserve, essentially.
Let's say they were all leaving it in reserve until, something pops up or we need it, it's there.
Did you hear that, Bernard?
I did.
That's fine.
Okay. Fair enough. It's just, this looks like it's gonna be the largest contingency in any budget we're reviewing. So it kind of stands out when you look at it percentage of total budget. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Oh, I was just gonna say that, not to just keep harping on this, but I think if I understand where everybody's coming from, it seems like it would be helpful if the date here would actually reflect what the actual was through. It doesn't really matter when you pull the report, just we know it's through 3/31, then when we're trying to extrapolate and forecast what the rest of the year might look like. It really, it doesn't really matter what the date is on when that was pulled.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
having the correct date on the budget column would be helpful, I think, from my perspective.
Anything more? Okay, so next we will do water.
Let's do cemetery.
Let's do cemetery, okay.
Yep.
Cemetery's tab 15.
Again, cemetery is pretty straightforward. Revenue is, people are dying to get in there, so whatever it is. Oh,
Every year, it's like your favorite,
Yeah.
just like to say that joke.
It's everybody's favorite joke. No, really no major changes in this one in terms of personnel, or expenses really. But it is slowly losing money. We need to figure out some kind of permanent solution to fix it. I don't know if that is carving out some general fund money to keep it propped up, but it's not maintaining itself financially.
Do we have a historic cemetery committee or?
Mm-mm.
Any
But
questions?
the budget itself is, yeah, pretty straightforward, no major changes.
Bernard, do you still have your hand up or,
You just put it up.
okay,
Am I
Go ahead.
up? Yes.
Yeah.
So just to review for the city administrator, the deficit of the cemetery fund for next year is what? How much do our anticipated expenses exceed our anticipated revenues? A dollar figure, please.
If we look here, let's see here. So last fiscal year is about $6,000. It broke even the year before. This year, we're about 1,000 underwater. So on average, we're probably looking at 1,500, 2,000 a year. Again, it depends on how much happens in the cemetery. Biggest things though are utilities and then wages. Those are the two things that we really can't get rid of.
And does this year's budget include a transfer from the cemetery trust?
No, that will be completed this fiscal year.
Okay, so those numbers reflect pure no outside additional revenues supporting the cemetery budget.
Correct.
Okay, and then just I'm curious, how many people are being buried a year?
Sheldon, you dig them.
It varies, and I don't really know this
We
year. I mean,
probably average 2 to 3.
Yeah, at most a half. Since I've been here, half a dozen at the most. I mean, it's not a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say 5.
Yeah.
Right about it there.
We'll just
And
look at-
and then, you know, when an operation like this, you're relying on the fees you charge. So are our fees for burial, are they under market or at market, or how do we stand compared to other burial services or cemetery services?
I couldn't tell you.
They're under.
Since 2008, I would say they're under.
Okay, under. Staff confers under.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm just gonna say it. I'm not a fan of the general fund subsidizing this service. And it would be my intent that council consider setting those fees at amount where it can mostly cover its costs, if not always, completely cover its costs. You know, I feel like our general fund is critically challenged, and the fact that we're about to start, subsidizing the cemetery with that is something I would like to remedy in short order. Thank you.
Sherelle.
I was just gonna say you could probably pretty easily extrapolate how many people are buried by looking at the sale of plots versus the price, and looks like what are they, $700 still for a plot? And $400 for a main plot. So looks like they're planning for one plot to sell.
Denise.
And just briefly, it would go to council, but in my experience there with Oregon State Park and Rec. And there is a lot of funding for historic cemeteries, and maybe the council needs to consider a committee. I know we feel like we haven't been filling committees, but there are people who have an interest in that cemetery. And there would be funding, and maybe they could also market it. So just put that out there, that it is an asset to a city to have one. So helping find a committee to fund it for the next budget would be great.
Okay, anything you want to add, Sheldon, before we move on? Okay, Are we good? Okay, so let's, water next.
We can do water.
Water 16. Tap 16.
Again, pretty similar budget to last year. See here, slight increase in water sales. Just with a couple new residents coming in. Got the debt collection that's pretty stable. Personnel slightly up. This has a good chunk of the proposed utilities director position going in there. And then a slight increase for the field maintenance supervisor position, since they've gone over what was budgeted for this year.
Are there any questions?
For materials and services, pretty close to the same. No major changes there, and then capital outlays exactly the same.
And then Sheldon also sewer, is that true?
Yep, sewer's the last one, yeah.
Okay, so there's no more questions on that, then we'll go back to sewer, which is tab 10.
Sewer is an interesting one. As at least council is aware, our plant operators, Jacobs, pulled out of our contract. We did an RFP for a new plant operator. The cost for us is going to double. So it's going from about 160,000 a year to 300,000 a year. So that really hurts the sewer fund. To make this budget balanced, we have to do a significant pull from reserve. Estimated amount of about 185,000 to cover it. We are in the works of doing a rate study to increase sewer rates, so that will, once that's up and running with the new rates, hopefully within August or September at the latest, that will do a little bit of an ease on that. But until rates are passed, this is what we're working with.
Marianne.
I have a question on 185,000.
Yes,
According to Oregon budget law, you're not allowed to use capital reserves except for what the resolution states. And the resolution states that it is for facility, system, vehicle, equipment, replacement, and upgrade. It is not for operations. It's illegal to transfer.
okay, I don't know how else to pay for it.
Well, I'm just saying, you can transfer it, but it's not legal by Oregon budget law.
Then we need to change our resolution. Because it refers back to our resolution, not a state resolution.
Oregon budget law says you can't do it unless it's for the resolution, and it's not at this time.
Okay.
So how do we fund it?
That's a good question. Sheldon.
Marianne, I got a question for you. When you, one of the things you stated was, facility or, you know, the plant itself, I forget exactly what word it
It
was.
says facilities.
Facilities, okay, well. Is that part of taking care of the facilities?
In my mind, and again, it's interpreted, it's
Having
for,
time to run it,
it's the facilities itself, not running it. That's what that's what your rate is for, is service, so.
I mean, I get, you know, kind of how you look at it, but in
Yeah.
situations,
And those are called what again, Marianne? From his
What?
They're called what again? The 185.
Facilities,
No, what's the original title?
oh, it's transfer from other funds,
And which is?
31,305, what do you want?
No, what's the?
Where's it coming from?
Yeah, where?
It's coming from capital reserve.
Thank you. So. We probably need some clarification on.
Marianne, do you have that resolution number?
Resolution 1148.
Bernard. Sorry.
Been telling what that line.
I know, I can't, yeah. Bernard.
Yes, okay, so thank you, Chair. So a few thoughts. One, we show a beginning balance of 0 for the sewer fund. I just want to confirm, did our last audit that was closed, that, the auditors presented on, what was the beginning balance of sewer of that audit? That's my first question.
I'd have to look it up. I don't know off the top of my head.
Because if part of the reason we don't have a beginning balance is, one, we know sewer is challenged, but two, we don't have our audits up to date. I would be okay with using a beginning balance from our last completed audit for this year's budget. That could fill some of that 185,000. So that's my first thought. The second
Yeah.
thought is that in this budget, we have the item, this is sewer interfund transfer expenses. So where we spend 76,500 to the sewer bond fund out of the sewer, the proposed budget for this year. It's on the second page, the third set of expenditures. And I understand Councilmember Bump's point. I believe she's accurate in that comment, but a sewer bond fund would fit an expenditure for the capital reserve fund, in my estimation. I'm welcome to someone refuting that, but I don't think that is an inappropriate expense. So one way to say this is say, instead of the sewer bond fund being paid through this budget, we send 76 of that 185 straight to make that sewer bond fund payment. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And that reduces your whole, down to about 110. And if we had a beginning balance of close to 110, then we've got a balanced budget again. But needless to say, these kind of, picking and trying to move things and getting creative do not sit well with me. And I'm very motivated to get our revenues right with the expenditures of running this utility via, a desperately needed sewer rate update. So I just want to reinforce my take on that. So those are two ideas to make this budget fix.
Gordon, are you
What?
online too?
Yes, no, I'm on, and this is, my work.
Doing
Yeah.
the spreadsheet up. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sorry. I just never seen that before. Denise.
Thank you, and thank you, Marianne, for pointing that out, and if we can find more, appreciate that, Councilman Seeger. That would be covered by the capital outlay, such as the column on the second page that says sewer capital outlay expenses. There's only budgeting 7,000 and 8,000, could that be from the transfer of funds? As well as which one, the one on the first page, fourth entry down, 31,305,40315 sewer facilities project, would that qualify under the resolution that you mentioned as the capital outlay using our transfer funds?
Are you talking 138,000?
Yeah,
That is collected and goes straight to debt.
okay.
Yeah,
So-
that's already spoken for.
Okay, what I'm saying is we want to transfer 185,000. Do we have 185,000 worth of expenses that would qualify legally for that transfer?
Not in the fund, no.
Not in our budget, is what I'm
Correct.
saying. I think we might, if we look at what Councilman Seeger said, and the sewer capital outlay expenses, and maybe some other budgeted items that would qualify.
Bernard.
Okay, and then the other thing that we have the option of doing is the sewer utility taking a loan from one of the other utilities that has a healthy, capital reserve. So you can do an interfund loan between utilities as a short-term fix at a market rate interest rate, and then, again, when we get our rates update, then sewer will repay those funds, in an agreed upon timeline. So that's another a way to bridge this gap, given the you know, the poor revenue situation that this utility finds itself in.
Can you restate your first proposal? What was your first proposal?
So the first thing is provide a beginning balance that reflects the last completed audit. And then the second thing is, instead of the 185 showing up as revenue, we take 76 of that from the capital reserve and apply it straight to the sewer bond fund expense of 2018. Does that make sense?
Yep.
For the chair?
Yes, thank you. So I had a couple, before we get done with Sheldon, I wanted to ask the same questions that I asked, the electric department. Your opinion on the utilities director, is that gonna be a benefit to your department?
I think it could be,
Strongly could be, or?
well. I mean, I've seen things happen in the past where. We're gonna do this and it's like, oh, great, we hired this person, but it never really. Revolves or devolves into what it was intended. If everything fits, if the shoe fits. And everything works out, then I can see it being a benefit. If not, it's a big waste of money. Obviously. Taking, some money out of our budget that we operate on to do that, but. It's kind of, it'd be nice to have that. That where you can see in the future and see that that's gonna work, and is it worth trying? Because what I guess for my department, where I'd say the biggest benefit would be. Is get me out of that office. So I'm not in there as much and put me in the field where I belong. I benefit the city more by being out and about and being able to work versus. Doing the regulation stuff and the paperwork and the meetings and whatnot, I would rather just. Benefit the city. By being in field work.
And how much are you in the office? How many hours?
I've never sit down and tracked it, but I mean, more than I wanna be. But yeah, I can't, I know what you're looking for, I would say. Throughout the year, cause it varies 30% maybe, of the office.
And then, do you have project needs within the city do you have needs that need to be done within the city on projects? Are there projects that you need to get done within the city?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Can you list some of them?
As far as water goes, there's some lines we need to address and investigate. I wouldn't say go in and replace, but do some potholing and see what kind of shape they're in. And there's a few, some of the older ones. We've had nothing as reared its head to where we can totally identify, hey, that line on Edgewood is garbage, we need to replace it. We do have some water loss, and we've got to figure out where that is.
Can you state how much water loss? You have?
Close to, what was it? I'm waiting, I've got an engineer looking at the numbers, because we worked the numbers. I think Jordan took a look at the numbers, and it's like, man, that doesn't make sense. With what we replaced and what we got, so we take, what goes through the meter, what we pump out of the ground. And so I'm waiting to kind of hear back from him. And see what he thinks, and he was one of the ones that wrote the water, the master plan and was involved in all the new pipe that went in the ground with Crestline. So, and when I first gave him the numbers, he goes, yeah, that doesn't make sense, it shouldn't have that much loss, so. It's 50.
It's like 50%, yes.
Years ago too.
Yeah, it was 80 years ago before we did all the work, and then we got it down. Which then the first year or two it was down, and then now it's kind of creeps back up, and we're just trying to figure out where it's going.
And then one more question. Do you have special equipment needs.
Let me, one more thing on the lake thing, I've been talking with some folks and it costs money. But they can come in and they basically have a listening device and they go to this valve, this hydrant. And try to isolate and listen and figure out, cause you can hear that
Yeah,
water.
yeah.
And you isolate an area. And try to identify where the leaks are. And I think that's something we need to make sure that there are funds. Or to do that. Anything else? Yeah, we need a camera or a sewer scope.
Yeah.
I mean, I can keep going on, I mean, but that's one thing, we can keep the back trailer, that, you know, I see you're hydro excavating instead of. In certain situations, it'd be nice to have a back truck. We usually go rent one, if I say truck, I mean trailer. And the need for that is. It's coming up more and more. Growing that to be able to have that, and both departments would benefit from. I say the light department and public works would benefit from a backpacker. And of course, there's other things, but they're kind of smaller and not like big ticket items.
Lawnmowers.
Lawnmowers, yeah,
I'm not sure.
Doesn't the state have pretty strict guidelines on water loss as far as like, you know,
they do.
and just from what you said about the utilities director and potentially it helping, it feels like a position could be a valuable asset for helping the department. You guys got in the field and that person help really try to clean up the system and identify those leaks and maybe know. And in Gresham, they just hired someone that it's like satellite imagery that helps detect leaks. So it's just utilities director might be a benefit to the public works department to help kind of do that office work that you said.
Okay, are there any more questions? Okay, then I think that we're done with you. I think is that.
Yeah, that's all,
we have for
yeah,
sure.
public
Okay,
works funds.
all right,
It's
now,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, all right,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sheldon.
Okay, so now we need to go back to the original discussion and we have to decide overall, because we could probably do some things like tourism. Was handed out tonight.
Look at it. I didn't look at it.
Well, we got it tonight. Well, it's not big of a budget, it's only one page. I get that, okay. So we need to figure out what direction to give Jordan on the percentages. Which was a lot of reading. Now I'll let Jordan go ahead and give us.
Yeah, so like the committee wanted to is look back at the forensic audit from 2013. I went and looked at it, I actually talked to the lady who wrote it, got some understanding of the method behind it, what it was, and finding the percentages, how to equally apply them. The percentages were used based off only the funds that are paying into the fee, so general fund wasn't included, but then it doesn't actually list what to do with those percentages. That is completely up to the city, the budget committee, and how they want to apply that so it's equally allocated. So the proposed, I have 3 columns here for using budgeted expenses as the method for personnel and cost of services. The proposed alternative one based off of.
Can you hold up?
Yep.
It's the.
Yeah, so it's the email I sent out. Yes, it's been yesterday at 1:41. So alternative 1 is using the same numbers I used, which was all of the personnel services in general in the general fund, including admin and property, and all of the materials and services, which is admin, property, planning, law enforcement, community support. I know I'm missing some in there, but all of those in there. And then alternative 2, I think goes back to the previous iteration with the budget, where it was just the admin personnel services, which is essentially city hall operations, and admin materials and services. And then Oh, go ahead.
So can I ask, so for, the proposed that you gave us, that's the 35% state support, is that?
Yes, yep.
And then the alternative one is a different
Yes, so in your packet there is the one that says alternative one written on the bottom of it. And then alternative two. And again, these numbers are gonna change based off whatever changes happen within the budget. This just gives you a general idea of what kind of effect it would have. So alternative one, I think, puts too much pressure. It's a drastic increase, puts too much pressure on the funds. I just don't think it's feasible. Alternative two only comes out to about a $10,000 difference in $1 million amount, so that's an odd coincidence there. But it actually puts less pressure on the electric department and more on our smaller funds, which I think was what people were trying to avoid. But if we're trying to stay within the bounds of what was given as recommendations within that forensic audit, that's the best option forward. I also did map out using FTEs and revenue as other ways to determine those percentages. Which are
being
full-time equivalency, which are listed as FTE 1, FTE 2, revenue 1, and revenue 2, and those either come out. I gotta work at those again here. Those come out significantly increasing the funds, at least the FTE does, for especially the smaller funds. And then same thing for if we use revenue as the basis to create those admin funds. So again, staff is recommending alternative 2, staying with budgeted expenses.
Bernard.
Okay, hey, thanks for this analysis for city administrator and the finance officer. So as I look at these, I must say I'm going back to our original proposed. And I didn't appreciate how that worked until I thought more about it and looked at the numbers closer. And I think an apt analysis or analogy is it's kind of like a flat tax. When you say it's 35% across the board, you go, wait a second, everyone's being treated the same, but that assumes everyone has the same size operation. And that's not what we know. We have some operations smaller than others. So the big operations do pay more than the smaller. So that's the kind of the attractiveness of a flat tax is that it is a very efficient way to do things, and it does treat bigger players. They pay more than the smaller players, and I see now that this very much achieves that allocation of burden in what was originally proposed. The fact that alternative 2, adds 55,000 to the EMS, which we know comes straight out of general fund, does not sit well with me. We don't need to further burden our general fund via this administrative overhead, cost allocation. So for those 2 reasons, I'm supportive of the original structure where we go with the proposed.
Can I push back a little bit on that?
Of course.
It costs the EMS more, but then it costs sewer less, which is an ailing, which is a hard fund right now. So, I mean, I don't. Is that justifiable to cost the sewer more? I mean, that's $12,000.
Well, in my mind, it is because the sewer fund has a rate structure that it can manage. We have very few tools to manage general fund revenues. We're stuck, but we're not stuck with sewer fund. So I'd much rather, help sewer manage through its increased costs then again, we have very little leverage to pull for the general fund in absorbing its cost. Not to mention 17 is a much smaller difference than 55.
And also, is it, I thought it was more based on how much staff time it required, so I mean. Obviously,
That was one of the recommendations, but it would have to do a time analysis, which is just not feasible right now. We'd have to track what we're doing or what we're all working on over a period of time, probably over several months to get an accurate guess, which is obviously not feasible right now. It's something we can do in the future.
They could change year after year after.
It's very true. Yeah. These things change every year. If I mean, I have two major projects in the electric department going right now that take up way too much of my time. Once those are done, my time frame will switch significantly. Probably focus more on getting the food tax passed, which will be, I guess, technically fire EMS, because that's where the money's going.
you have more, Bernard?
No, that's it. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Marianne?
I just want to point out something that I feel is misleading. On the spreadsheet that he prepared,
Which one, on that?
well, there's so many of them, but the one that,
The colored one?
this one, well, they all colored. But it says on the first page, it's one that has the first page on it, I don't know what it is. The administrative overhead fee structure presented by Councilor Bump at 521 budget meeting, this is incorrect, that's not what I recommended. I have what I recommended, and it isn't that. Cause I would never put City Light in a bankrupt position. So that is misleading and
I probably misunderstood you, so my apologies.
because I have that right here and it does not state that. It says City Light pays $207,000. So that's not what I asked. What I've tried to tell you. Oh,
So what is the pleasure of the budget committee? Proposed alternative 1 or alternative 2? And you were recommending if we changed it from proposed. to-
Yes, I mean,
To alternative 2?
do alternate, yeah, if the budget committee did not want to stick with the proposed one, go with alternative 2. But again, I will adjust it to whatever the committee wants. Denise.
It's hard to see, isn't it?
I know, it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
I could probably sit over there, but okay.
So I just wanted to ask staff, now that you've ran through these numbers, thank you very much.
Yes.
It's a lot of work and sharing with us, based on the 2013 forensic audit. Do you have a current recommendation or does staff?
That's what I was.
Yeah,
There's alternative 2.
Yeah, alternative 2.
But even
Oh,
if
between
you were
the
saying,
two.
if we want to change from proposed, but should it be between proposed and alternative 2?
I would stick with proposed. The only, I guess I'd be fine with either one. I mean, it essentially gives the same amount of money to the general fund, which is my biggest headache. What I like about alternative 2 is it does free up more money for the electric department, which will be our next discussion to get that additional lineman and pay for utilities director. That would be the biggest benefit in my mind in creating this budget.
Sure.
I know you sent an email to the budget committee, but can you talk about the fallout on the other funds if we go with alternate 2, the general fund, the EMS fund, and how it's gonna affect those? So
I haven't gamed out anybody except the fire and EMS because the general fund covers EMS overhead fee. It essentially would result in about I think Councilor Seeger said, about a $60,000 loss in general fund that it could put towards what was in contingency. So the contingency fund would go from about 77,000 to about 15. Yeah. Which doesn't get anywhere closer to getting the code enforcement officer we all want.
Thank you. That's my. You're making my argument. Thank you.
Tom, you breaking things?
no, I think.
No. Okay, now, yeah, there we go. Okay, be careful. Yeah. Mary Ann, put your foot out, you're gonna knock it down. Okay. So. I guess.
I just need a consensus to
Yeah.
move forward and then I can build it for our meeting next week.
Or you can just keep going tonight if we stick with the original.
I still need to plug numbers in, but yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but I mean, based off other changes, but yeah.
Well, personally, I then agree with Bernard Seeger to stay with the proposed, and I don't know if everybody else wants to share their.
Okay, I'm gonna go around the room, I guess. Butch, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
What do you think? Stay with the proposed at 35% across all of the funds or go with the alternative 2?
Well, I'm still hung up and haven't been satisfied with an answer on this new employee that will be taking care of utilities, the utilities director. And I'm so at this point, I'm no.
Okay, but we know on what? Alternative 2 or the proposed? Both?
Yes.
Well, because we need to set a overhead fee structure, so. So you're not willing to go with either one of them?
No.
Okay, I don't know who had their hand up first.
Looking at alternative 1 and alternative 2. Trying to make sense of this. Let's look at the EMS column, under personnel, $608,008. $39% of that is $273,747, which is what alternative 2 states. So how did alternative 1 get $313,256? I don't understand why the personnel top 2 lines are the exact same on both of these, but then the total underneath of them is different. How did those get different numbers when the personnel numbers are all the exact same?
So if you see just to the left of it, that's 793 for alternative 1 and 693 for alternative 2.
Okay.
That's what you're multiplying the percentage by. That's why the numbers are different. So alternative 1 is grabbing all personnel costs within the general fund, which is city hall operations and property, which is Sheldon and his crew. Alternative 2 is grabbing just administrative personnel, which is city hall, which is me, the director, the finance director, the administrative director, the clerk, billing clerk, just those that work in city hall.
And then the same for materials.
Same for material and service. That one's a little bit bigger because in alternative 1 it grabs all of them, which is property, law enforcement, planning, community support, and I know there's another one there, but I'm forgetting. So that's why. Alternative 1 matches what numbers I used in my proposed setting.
Thank you, yeah, gotcha, the part.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I sorry if I didn't make that clear.
I realize I'm playing catch up, but
Sorry. If you can grasp it that quick, you're doing pretty good. Sherelle, did you still have a question?
I'm just gonna ask if this is appropriate for a consensus, just a general consensus rather than like roll call.
Oh, okay. Sure, yeah, we can do it that way.
Another question.
Tony, go ahead.
Jordan, did you say that your staff recommended alternative 2 and that alternative 2 was as close to the forensic audit advice that you were given?
Correct, yes. Yeah, that's if council didn't want, or the committee didn't want to stick with the proposed.
So if you were to rank them, proposed alternative 2, alternative 3.
Alternative 1.
I would go
Thank you for the
proposed.
clarification.
I would go proposed because it does give more money to the general fund.
Proposes in the proposed 25-6.
Yes, what was originally proposed, yes. Yes, like it gives the general fund about $60,000 more dollars.
So does the proposed takes into account the utilities director?
Yes, well, what I originally proposed, these numbers will change depending on, I think, our next discussion on how many linemen we hire and if we want to do a utilities director. So these numbers will change. This just gives the general layout of the math.
The formula.
Yes, yep.
Okay, so I guess by a show of hands, I guess we go with the original proposed straight 35% charge for each department across. Oh wait, okay, I guess Courtney has another
Sorry, one
question.
more question about this. So you said that 39% on alternative two EMS applies to that 693,214 total. Is that-
Yes.
Did I hear that right?
Correct.
So 39% of 693,214 is 270,353. That's a difference of $3,000. 4% of 693,214 is 27,728. Looking at alternative one, 39% of 793,263. 39% of that is 309,372.
It's probably the rounding, it's probably like a 38.7%. I think I round it to the nearest percentage. That's probably why it's off if you're doing exactly 39. So my apologies. I think the actual percentages aren't quite even. That's why they're slightly off. So sorry. I should have added decimal points to that. My apologies. Yeah.
I'm trying to catch up.
Yeah. No, that's on me. Sorry. I'll take the blame for that one.
Jordan, when you said that the staff recommended alternative two, who does that compile? Is that just your office staff, or is that the people that are in charge of those other?
No, just admin staff.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Office staff. Yeah.
Okay, okay, so I guess by a show of hands, who wants to continue with the 35, the originally proposed 35% across the board to each department?
Well, it's 35 for personnel and 13 for materials and services, just to be clear. Yeah.
Okay. And Butch, he don't.
No.
Butch is no. Okay, so I can keep your hands up so I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, including Bernard. It's for them. And then those in favor of the alternative two proposal. So we've got 6 to 5. So it looks like the 35%. The 35% gets it, so.
Are we voting on this?
Well, we have to give them a direction
Yeah.
and to move forward with the budget. If we're gonna make the recommendation that it be alternative two, then the budget has to be reworked. If we're gonna keep it as is, then it doesn't have to be reworked.
Not as much. Not as much.
And we can get more done tonight.
Since we still have to go through the electric fund and talk about.
Yes,
changes.
yes, yeah.
Maybe we can revisit this decision after we talk about if we chose alternative two. How that impact would be in the electric fund?
Is that?
Would that make a difference to anybody on the committee?
Wouldn't affect me.
What did you say?
So that would not affect me.
Okay. I doubt. Yeah. Okay, so I guess the direction we're giving is to leave it as proposed with the 35% across and the 13% in material services. Okay, so since we're agreed to keep it as is. Do you want to go back and discuss the electric department? Or
I do, and I think really what I want to get out of that discussion is how many staff are we going to put in that department? Again, I'd still need, even with keeping proposed, I still need to go back and rework everything. But I just want a high level, how many staff do we want in the electric department?
So we're going back to tab 7, this is the electric department. I guess the first question would be. Alright, so is there a question about whether or not the electric department is gonna pay for the utilities director? Is that a question?
No, so you want one.
Yeah, they would essentially pay for about half of the salary, so without it, I can't afford it. And I'm probably not doing a good enough job explaining how much this is gonna help the city. How much it will take off my plate, which I will still be working. I will be working on the long-term plans for this building, interacting with state legislators, actually doing administrative level work and not sitting down in engineering meetings, talking about where power lines should go. That is not my job. My job is to make sure we have a long-term solution to keep this city moving forward. And I don't have the bandwidth to do that right now.
So I have a question, is there a person that can do both electric and water?
I'm looking for administrative skills, not technical skills. I want somebody who can manage those guys downstairs or women, whoever works down there, and give them direction. Right now, they're doing a fantastic job, but they are going day by day. Whatever happens to come up, they will address it. There is no planning for this month, next month, 6 months down the road. We need to scope our sewer system. There's no plan for that. It's planning out their work instead of going, well, let's see what pops up today.
Okay, so then my other question will be with if Sheldon says that. I mean, only 30% of his time is spent in the office, and Derek said that it would be of no benefit to him. I mean, he didn't.
They are in the office doing the minimum they have to be in the office. This director, again, will do the long-term planning for the department, working on master plans, planning things out. They're in the office because they have to be. They're not doing the stuff a director should be doing. So it's me and Sheldon kind of co-directors, and neither one of us are getting the job done. It's same with me and Derek and Electric. The job, we're getting by, but the job's not getting done to what it fully should be.
Bernard.
Thank you, Chair. So I guess I want to make my statement of support of keeping the utility services director. And it's based on two things. One, when I was in the city administrator job, City Light had 4 people operating it. There's a groundman, 2 linemen, and a working foreman. Okay. What currently we're considering is 3 folks in the electric utility. So a groundman, a lineman, and a working foreman. And the working foreman is, again, he's doing line work, but also over, administrative and management. The idea of having basically that department be 3.5. So if we could hire a groundman, a lineman, and a working foreman, and then a utility service director where 0.5 of that person's time would be applied to the electric utility, then we're still short from what existed when I was there. And again, it's my experience that you could make a strong case that 4 was about right, but I'm sure you could make a case that needed more. We're not asking that. Right now, we're proposing 3.5, and this department used to be 4. And I can't stress enough the importance of long-term planning when it comes to capital. And all these utilities have capital needs. Water, sewer, electric have these long-term planning and capital needs that are not being considered and planned for. And you can't just wake up and underground, several miles of line, or wake up and, upgrade your sewer treatment plant. Those things are very timely and very, high workload requirements. And we just don't have that leadership right now. And I continue to believe it's not realistic to just say the city administrator is going to be able to do that. And so that's where I am on this. If it wasn't clear, my fallback is we get a working foreman, a lineman, and a groundman, and we don't hire that utility services director. Maybe we have that conversation another day. At a minimum, I would like to see that. But if I could get what I think this city needs, it would include the utility services director for those reasons.
Okay. You're saying that they're gonna hire two more people on, but when the questions I asked Derek, he seems satisfied with two employees in his department.
Yeah, and I guess I would dispute that. I pulled up the latest PUC inspection. Oregon PUC inspects every utility in Oregon, electric utility once a year. And I went through it, and I'm happy to share some of the comments that were submitted by the PUC. We have lots of NESC violations. I can read a few to you. I don't want to, completely bore you, but let's see. Here we go. So one of the statements in the report was staff analysis. That's the analysis of PUC. Indicates City of Cascade Locks inspectors are missing or failing to identify basic NESC violations. And then there's like 30 pages of violations that exist in our utility. And some of them, inspection was done in 2024, were identified in 2021. So if we don't need the help, then why do we have violations that were identified in 2020 and 3 years later still have not been remedied? And some of them are hazards. They when they have a hazard, they kind of highlight like these are hazardous to the public, again, that are not being addressed. So I guess, this reporting to me says that there's plenty of work to do operationally and from a maintenance perspective that could keep these guys busy. And then again, I mentioned all the capital needs. We need to underground those lines near Eagle Creek. And I think our next focus should be the grounds in Wyeth, which are a high wildfire risk. And, every day those things go, unaddressed is another day that, our town risks a catastrophic fire. And I just don't think that's wise as the owner of an electric utility that, if we don't play our cards right, you don't have to look very hard in very newspaper stories to find electric utilities that didn't do the proper maintenance on their electric utility. They had a massive fire and they were sued into bankruptcy. They'd be a terrible fate for our community if that happened. But we're neglecting our electric utility as we are right now. And I think it's too high risk for us not to fund these positions. At a minimum, the groundman, the lineman, and the working foreman.
Butch.
Yeah, I like what Bernard said, but the thing is we have had such a huge problem in hiring linemen and foremen because they can make much more money somewhere else. So we're going to hire a utility director to oversee what? One guy? No thanks. I just think this is ludicrous. All right. Back to you.
Please.
Thank you. I did have a chance to talk to some folks about this, and in the beginning I thought I didn't want a utility director, and now that I understand the future needs, the future planning, and I truly appreciate Derek and Sheldon stepping up and taking the role, and our city administrator, and he admits that he is not able to do other things because he's taking on the role of the utility director. And I do think our city administrator, in the short time I've been a counselor and, other committees such as Main Street, learning about the money that's out there. We could get, we've received some grants for our strategic plan, the downtown revitalization plan. It's going to legislature. And thinking about the utility in California that was sued because of the wildfire, because of the lack of, and people lost their lives. I mean, even bigger than a suit is the loss of lives. I can see the value of this position. So I would, hope that this council is thinking again. We are looking to the future. We appreciate everybody's done it. And it's hard to know what you're not getting done when you're so busy just doing part of that job with your job, such as Sheldon and Derek. So they're like, okay, yay, we made it, no big thing. But when we find we have violations and we find we're not planning for the future, we find that our city administrator is taking away from other duties he could be doing. I would say I am in favor of the utility director.
Okay. So does the budget? I don't remember. It was one of the- Does the budget include the 3 positions and the utility?
So I have a draft here that has the groundman, 2 linemen and the utilities director. I haven't put in, as you can see, that blank square at the bottom, how that would affect overhead fees. So that's the big question. I think if council decides they want to do all 3.5 for the electric department, I can go back and rework the numbers and present at the next council meeting and see if it is a reasonable financial ability. So
And I mean, I know we have the report, but once the report is taken care of, is there enough work, like you said previously, they like to work.
The issue is we don't have enough money to continually keep them busy. I'd love to underground things. I'd love to underground as much as possible, but it's having the actual money to pay for the materials and all that. And that's where having a utilities director could go writing grants, looking for those funding to do those projects. So it is kind of a catch-22. Without the assistance of finding that money, we won't have the work for that. Linemen are weird and they actually like to do their job and climb poles and risk their lives. They're weird, but they love it. So
Sure.
It's also one of the thoughts I have about the utility supervisor and filling those 3 roles, hiring somebody, finding somebody who wants to work at the city of Cascade Box.
Keeping them here.
Sorry?
Keeping them here.
No, the utilities director may be able to take the time to go recruit just the right person for the job that wants to be here and wants to do the work that we have. And as you heard Bernard say, there's plenty of work to do. We just don't have the staff to do it right now. And this doesn't have to be ongoing forever. This is next year's projection, right? If we can't find somebody, if we can't hire somebody, it'll put a beginning fund balance and, there's no loss.
And I'm gonna push back just a little because I have no doubt that like for a year, we have a lot of work that needs to be done. We got a lot of poles that need to be replaced. We got a lot of dead trees and debris that needs to be removed. And it's like after that, I mean, I don't want to bring somebody here and then
so we can reassess at that point. Maybe we get 2 years down the road, we're caught up, we're doing fantastic, our systems are in place, we can cut a position. We don't have to keep them. We
ran for 50 years with 3 linemen.
And then my other question has to do with we just redesignated the title of Derek's title. I mean, how will that impact the utilities director? Because we'll have to, because we gave him a lot of different titles, which to me feels like it would fit in the utility director.
Some of it, I picture it essentially as kind of Derek's gonna hate this, but administrative assistant for the utilities director, really helping on the electric side, the administrative technical portion of the electric side. Because again, they're gonna be probably a person who has experience in one, but not the other, learning them, or maybe not at all, and their skill is administrative, and they're trying to learn this. So, and this person will essentially be the assistant to the the utilities director, while the linemen are out doing the work.
Butch had his hand up first. Go ahead, Butch.
Yeah, this is nothing but cart before the horse. My God. You don't have the utility people to be working, but you want to have a director for them? That's a waste of money. Get your lineman and your line foreman and then start looking for a utility director, not first.
Only a portion of their job will be supervising these employees, though. The majority of their job will be long-term planning for all of these departments.
But you have nobody to supervise. So why you gotta make sure you have them first.
That's not the point of the position. Yes, they need a supervisor, but it's the long-term planning of the departments that is not happening right now.
Okay, are you done, Butch?
Yeah.
Pete.
The term on the contract that we just signed?
2 years.
2 years. So I guess
IBEW contract for linemen, just so everybody is on the same boat, yes.
And one of the reasons why we negotiate for a shorter term was so that if we were to hire these positions, we could then redefine that job description and make that adjustment.
Yes, we could eliminate that job description. Or that, the need for that
Okay.
position. Yeah.
Bernard?
Thank you, Chair. So just two things. One, just to, add a little to the conversation on the role. To me, it's not out of place if you hire the utility services director, they would then build this new electric utility team that now only consists of one person. So there's plenty for them to do, not only in, again, starting the planning for these long-term needs, but also in building that team, which I know the city administrator would very much appreciate having someone taking over the hiring process. That in itself is a huge task to go through applications, identify them, come up with a review process, maybe some testing. I mean, all that takes time. Who does it? The city administrator. This is something that a utility services director could jump right into and take that burden off the city administrator. So, okay, so that's my first point. And then with regards to, keeping them busy, look, we're a $6 million utility. What's our total debt right now? We don't have much debt as a utility. We could borrow some money and go do some of these projects and then pay that money back. And then again, de-risk our utility. That's what forward-looking utilities do. They have the capital markets to take on projects that are critical not only to their maintenance operation, to their risk management. We're not doing that because we don't have the capacity. So all these things that we're talking about, I can assure you there are clear guidelines and processes in which we can implement to very much engage our utility and keep it a very viable, extremely well run and properly capitalized. And our ratepayers will appreciate it when we have a properly managed utility. If we don't do that, it would be a disappointment on our behalf as the budget folks. So that's my take.
And I just want to say, we do have debt in that department. We have $1.6 million in debt, unless it suddenly gets relieved, and then I can agree with what you say. Courtney?
So I understand the conundrum where if we spend the money on the employees, then there goes the money that we have to spend on projects. And what about a middle ground where we put off the utilities director, we put off the long-term planning? We hire people to take care of the short-term dangers, find someone that will work. And it's my understanding that if we hire someone through local union 125, which is who we just partnered with, that's a union thing. You put a call into the hall and somebody answers it. I'm not sure what more of the hiring process needs to happen for that. That's typically how unions work, how electrical unions work. And so I think we take the middle ground. I mean, utilities does need more people. I drive down the street, I see hazards all the time. We recently installed some stuff that is not to code, brand new installs, and it's worrisome as an electrician that I can see this stuff from the road. And so I understand the need. I also understand the need for future projects, but I mean, I feel like a good middle ground is get some people, take care of this stuff right in front of our nose, find the people that'll stay. Once we find the people that'll stay, then we can bring in the person that will help plan their long-term projects.
Keith?
Yeah, I think the deficiencies that you see are definitely concerning, and I don't want to put Bernard on the spot, but Bernard, are you prepared to talk about kind of the relationship between purchase power and revenue?
Well, I presented this to the city administrator on Monday, and my assumption was that they were going to work through some updated numbers that maybe maybe change the revenue and or expenditures forecast for the utility. Do you want to chat about that, the city administrator, or I'm happy to give, my analysis, but I thought you might have already picked at that a little and maybe you wanted to,
I have not done any analysis on it, no.
okay. Well, do you still want me to present, Mr. Happy?
Well, I just think it's kind of, it does, if we just look at actuals from 23-24 and look at the relationship between just power and revenue, and you kind of point, and I don't want to, Bernard's the one that, found this, and I don't want to steal his thunder here. The point is that it's a revenue generating asset, and taking care of that asset while also addressing the deficiencies and, that have been noted by the PUC and some of these being over 3 years old. That's what I really want to bring up. And I guess, dollars and cents, I think aside, is just the overall philosophy of maintaining this thing that's a revenue generating asset for the city.
Okay, Butch, and then Connie.
Yeah, now we just passed on a increase in electrical rates that BPE had passed on to us. I'm sure that our residents, our bill payers, are going to be happy that we increase that by hiring a utilities director and others. When right now we've been able to get by with it with Yates and everything else. Adding the extra costs and an extra loan is not going to make them happy. Thank you.
Connie.
I had a question. We've talked about a director of utilities, a lineman, working foreman, just a lineman, and a groundsman. What's the difference between a groundsman and a lineman?
Groundsman is, they're the gopher. They stay on the ground, they run the equipment, they get the supplies. The linemen are the ones actually up in the buckets on the poles doing the work.
Right.
Yeah, that's the difference. And a whole lot more training.
And the foreman.
And then the foreman is the one that actually supervises the work out in the field.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, how long ago did we advertise for a lineman?
I think there was one open when I got here 2.5 years ago, and we had 0 applicants. And then that's when we shut it down because we weren't getting any applicants.
Okay, so at this point, when we have an emergency, we have contract services that come in and take care of that for us right now. It's just that we haven't addressed the things that were pointed out as hazards from 2021 and up until now.
Correct. We do contract out. We will schedule them to come help with work when budget allows and when their schedules allow. So they are coming with some vegetation management. They're actually going to be here. I think they're actually going to be doing a lot, but they'll be back next week to help with some problem spots.
So do those contract services, do they deal with any of those hazards that we've talked about?
If we direct them to. Yes.
But they can.
Yes, they can.
Have the ability to
Yes.
do that contract
Correct.
service. So, okay, I think that's, so at this point, the difference between a cost of a groundsman and a lineman must be considerable.
Yes, it is. Yep. Let me just quick math. Let me go scroll back down here. I mean, I got the 3 of them right here. 118 for working foreman, 106 for lineman, and 99 for groundman. So not a huge amount, but it is a good chunk.
Have we ever had advertised for a groundsman?
We have not. No, Derek's been our groundsman for 15 years.
So it would be a second groundsman.
No. So he would still be the groundsman. We'd have to apply or get a journeyman lineman and a working foreman. Those are the 2 jobs we would post.
The working foreman is also a lineman.
Is a lineman, yes. They're essentially the working foreman because they're the ones designated the supervisor on the work site. That's really the only difference. There's no additional training. When Bernard was in this position, I think they were assigned some more administrative work, but that depends on how the structure of this department goes.
But you're saying 3 positions.
Yes.
One hired. And to add to the conversation with Connie is if we hire these 3 positions, then we won't need service contracts as much. because
It would be
we'll have
lowered
more
significantly, so I did lower them quite a bit here. Let me go back up here. Nope, that's revenue. So this is for. Where'd it go?
Absolutely nuts.
For city right here, I had it at 110. If we hire all 3, bump it down to 50. And that's really just because we hired Dennis Snyder to do a lot of our vegetation management. He's got the equipment to do it, and it's easy, he's local, and that's from what I can tell so far, that'd be the majority of that contract services is that helping with the vegetation management.
I think Connie's next. Were you done? I'm
Yes.
sorry. Okay, and Denise is next.
Thank you. I just want to remind this body, we do have the job title for utilities director in our notebooks, if you want to look at the duties, and I'm particularly seeing the cost to value benefit from bullet number 4 under essential functions represents the public works and electric departments to other city departments, elected officials, and outside agencies. And I think had we had a utilities director, when ODOT came and tried and got $1 million, gave us $1 million loan to pay them, that maybe that could have been diverted, that this position, if once that person, the utilities director is well immersed in Cascade Locks, maybe they could have helped represent us in the same way a lobbyist does, and in a way that would have stopped us from having to get that $1 million loan. And more things might pop up, more things will come. So that person making relationships with other agencies and elected officials, and again, on the note of finding funds to help do projects to keep these other higher positions busy, if that's what the council wants, undergrounding or other things, then it will be incumbent upon this position to find the funds to help do that, to keep those other jobs, those other personnel busy. So if you want to dig in your front pocket, you'll see this, I think, the utilities director job description.
Kelly.
I guess I hear us talking in circles again. And I think what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, we need to have a decision on a utilities director. And then we need to have a decision on, do we go with Tom's idea of using contracted services, or do we do the in-house positions? I feel us talking in circles. I would much rather be doing a lot of other things right now than talk in circles. So can we decide on a utilities director, yes or no? Then that would give us a decision to go with more linemen or contracted services, yes or no. My mind hasn't been changed by anything that has been said tonight. I don't think anybody else's mind has been changed. I want to move forward. I have lots of things in the next couple of weeks, and sitting in this meeting, I can't do it. So let's move forward, please.
I'm gonna say that everybody has a right to say what they want to say here, and I'm gonna allow them to do that. And if you can't participate in here, that's fine. There we have absentee people, so I'm not gonna force everybody to move faster. Go ahead, Sharon.
I was gonna say, kind of not as a response, but kind of with you. This again just reminds us of plan for the future. We aren't hiring. We're not. This
We're
committee
just setting
isn't.
the budget.
Sorry.
We're just setting the budget.
We're not authorizing hiring a utility billing supervisor. We're providing funding should council and staff decide to go that route. We're not hiring 2 linemen. We're saying whether or not we want to allow the funding. And that will be up to council and staff to decide whether or not to hire those people. So.
And I will say that once the budget's presented, that's kind of a given that it's gonna happen. It's not really open for discussion when it comes to the council because the budget was passed by the budget committee. So I've had this argument a lot of times. But, so I guess, do we start with the utilities director? I mean, what is the?
Mr. Miller.
I think Butch, Butch, go ahead.
Yeah, if Councilman Keller wants to move things forward, I would invite him to make motions to move them forward instead of just complaining about it.
Thank you.
I think I just did, Mr. Miller.
All right,
No,
okay,
you didn't.
okay, all right, all right, all right,
You didn't.
all right, stop, please. Tom,
Yeah, and I would just say as far as contract work or not contract work, if you're going to hire, don't just hire one line. Because one line, you need to hire two. All I would say is if you can do it, hire two linemen. Because the one isn't gonna help. You may as well do all the contract work if you're only gonna hire one lineman. You know, if you hire two linemen, now you got people that can do work for you. And they can get things caught up.
Pete,
And, you know, I know that it's been said before that we've had a hard time finding linemen, but I think that the employment market's very different, 2.5 years.
Yeah, it's been 2 years since we've tried, 2.5, yeah.
And even looking for this utilities director, I think I had a lot more people looking for work right now than
Yes.
there were 2 years ago.
Courtney,
I know there's a lot of people sitting on 1.5's books, there's a lot of electrical that's really slow right now, a lot of electricians are out of work because work is really slow right now. I mean, I would love, I mean, I'm union, I am biased, I have a dog in the fight. I'm local 48, not 125, I would be super excited to see the outcome of putting a call into the hall. I feel like it would be met with more than one person applying. And then also, I just wanna point out that if we were to recommend hiring a lineman and a lineman foreman, when they get here, they'll be working on the short-term projects first and working on catching us up to code. Long-term projects will be in the future, and yes, you have to start planning for long-term now to get it done then. But regardless of anything, we've got a lot of work to keep them busy. While the budget revamps itself and then we have more money in the spirit and we look at it and see what happens. Over the course of a year, having a line. What opportunities we get already.
very,
If you need a motion, I make a motion, we hire a journeyman lineman and a working foreman.
I said that.
any discussion? And then we'll come back to the utilities director, okay. Any discussion? So do we didn't take a motion, do we? I mean, do we make motions, really?
I don't know, I've never done budget meetings and I don't know.
They don't, but it seems to be a controversy, so
Let's do it.
to stop the controversy from happening.
It would be a consensus, I think.
I guess, yeah.
Well, I agree with that, but
Alright, so
nobody's doing anything.
do we have a consensus to hire a line, by hands, by show of hands? To hire a lineman and a foreman, a working foreman, is it?
Working foreman and a journeyman lineman.
But pardon me, did you say and not a utility?
Yeah, I said-
Yeah,
Later, separate.
Yeah, kind of a different question. So, by show of hands, I guess, let's.
This is to fund it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, fund it.
Okay, to fund it, okay, and Butch, is your hand up for this vote or not?
My hand is up because I think that belongs to the council and not the budget committee.
Agreed, but we're
agree.
just giving direction for the budget so that it can come to the council. That's. It's confusing, isn't it? So there's obviously a majority to do that. Okay, now let's discuss the utility director. I guess we just need, by a show of hands, how many think that a utilities director is a necessary thing in the budget this year? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 5, 1, 2, 3. Connie Hunter's 4, 5, and the 6 with Bernard. And am I counting right? Do we have 12 present tonight?
I think we got 12, yeah.
Yeah.
We're missing.
So that's half. Butch, what?
No,
I know you're a no. I already knew that. I didn't have to ask you. So that's half,
Well,
half yes and half no.
In our last vote, that was 6 to 5, wasn't it?
Yes,
Somebody
it was
was saying,
6 to
Yeah,
5.
that's what I thought.
somebody was saying.
Yes,
No,
Butch did.
Okay.
Butch did.
oh, Butch did.
Yes. Well, Butch didn't vote on that, so yeah. So now what?
Do we?
So if I vehemently disagree against it, then it doesn't pass?
Well,
Like you said, it's not a vote, it's just a consensus, so.
And we are missing just 2 folks tonight.
yes.
Could we suggest that, is it too much work to do this with or without?
No, he needs to know because.
I mean, it would help, I could put something together, but having a decision now would make this a lot better.
Yes.
Sure.
What is the total cost? I don't have the job description with me, I'm sorry. What's the total cost of utility director?
So if it's a high-end salary of 95, 20,000 for health insurance on the high end. PERS, we're looking at another 30,000. So we're looking at probably 140-ish, rough math, I'd have to pencil it out to 140.
And by the time the budget committee has gone through this entire budget, which we're almost done, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Oh,
What it
yeah.
comes down to is, are we going, as a majority of this committee, going to agree to send this budget to the council for adoption? So if we have 2 people missing and we think those 2 people are gonna make an impact on this decision, then we're kind of a stalemate, right? If it's that much of a dividing decision on $140,000 item in a however much dollar budget. Can we get this budget to council with the utility director in it?
And then council could vote it down if they did want it.
Sorry, and when we move to, not adopt the budget, what's called approve the budget.
Yeah.
We can certainly say our piece, people can say, you can agree to approve the budget and send it to the council, but with the note that you don't want the utility director in there, it's not. We just gotta get this budget to council,
Agreed.
and it's $140,000 in the entire budget, and.
Split between,
Question,
yes, ma'am.
you told us that the total cost of hiring a director of utilities is around 140,000. What is the total cost of hiring a lineman working foreman?
Both of them combined is probably closer to 300,000 or more with their salaries and benefits. And again, part of that does depend on, I mean, they'll eventually earn PERS at some point, but also depends on what health plan they have, because there's a huge difference in cost between individual only and family. So on the high end, 3 or more.
For 2 positions.
For 2 positions, yes.
But I think she was asking specifically for the working foreman, what's that all-in cost?
No, she's got.
For the working foreman is probably 170 of that. Again, I'd have to pencil it out, but it'd be a little over half of it.
And then so you're saying the lineman's gonna be 160, 330, 3?
It's probably more than 3. Again, I'd have to pencil it out, but it's over 3. I know that. I don't know the exact number.
And if I understand that right, we are already 138,000. Well, how much are we under already? Under what we did because of the tube and the sewer?
Oh, completely separate discussion. That's not related to this.
But money wise, it is in the bottom line.
Correct, but in terms of making this budget, they're completely separate conversations. They have nothing to do with each other.
Just then, going back to the journeyman lineman and the working foreman. I know there's a line item for standby time and overtime.
Yep.
They're separate.
Yep.
And I was just gonna comment that right now, all of that's just going to our groundsmen. It's not gonna result in an increase, it just will be reallocated.
It slightly will actually, because it's based off their hourly rate. And since the linemen and working foremen are at a higher hourly rate, it will go slightly higher.
Slightly.
Correct, yeah.
But also overtime though may go down some, because right now our groundsman's been doing standby, which has been putting him into a lot of overtime.
Those are separate.
They are separate.
Those are very separate, yep.
So OT won't come down.
Correct. Yep.
Butch.
Yeah, now the vote we just took was by consensus, correct?
It was just to give a direction for the budget.
Yeah, but it was by consensus. And what are the council rules on consensus?
Unless one strongly objects, it doesn't move forward, but that's kind of different than this. Does that answer your question?
No, not in the least.
Right.
I know we aren't saying a lot about this topic, but we just hired 2 more staff and then we didn't hire the person that will help guide the whole plan for all of these staff, or we didn't hire them, I know it's budgeted to possibly do that. And so I would rather personally have utilities director and then continue with contract services if we can't have all of the above. So otherwise, it's a package to me.
I've got a question about that. You said that we needed to hire the person that will run all of that, but then I feel like what has also been brought up is that they won't run it, then they'll be looking for money to bring into it. So which,
They're doing both, a little bit of both, because the director, it's the job of the director to help direct. Here's a project we're hoping to do in next April, here's a project, and yay, keep doing all the little things that we're behind on. But that director, we have mentioned, folks may leave because they're not up on the pole, they're not doing their work, that director will help find them the money and the work. So it's, you know, it's a little bit of both.
we've already got a list of stuff that we're behind on to accomplish and finish in the interim before we can add more employees to the budget.
And I think that director would help keep that ongoing and under a plan, and not just checking off fixing the problems.
I'm sure our utilities director will assure you that there's always something to do. Something always comes up that needs fixing. It's just a matter of will it be enough, but once we get all of these people. If council decides to hire all of these people, then where does the money come? For these projects, actually, utility director who funds the money, he's finding the money, then he's not overseeing. Sorry.
So, Brenda, go ahead. You have.
I just wanted to make a statement that we just renewed the groundsman's contract to have admin work and all of that. And we were signed into that contract for 2 years. So I say a lineman and a working foreman, which we already decided on. Because we can't take that groundman and lower his pay just because we get a director. And we're already paying, supplementing him to be able to kind of do that kind of stuff for us. And we have this letter from the PUC of things that we need to get done. And I don't understand why we haven't used contract service to get some of it done now, but that's another conversation. But we are in that contract with that groundsman for another 2 years. That does give us ability to use some admin and stuff because we opened up his job description.
So Jordan, what does contract services look like with the hiring of a journeyman lineman and a working foreman?
So like I said, estimated, it'd go down about 60,000. That's, I'd have to do a little more mathing, but I'd say we would save quite a bit. Most of that would be vegetation management, hiring Dennis Snyder, like he's been doing all spring, cutting blackberries, cutting down trees. I mean, we wouldn't have to spend any of it on actual lineman crews because we'd have a lineman crew, so it would save quite a bit of money.
Eric.
Correct me if, please correct me. I'm trying to understand. I thought Derek said that in the case of a weather event and we need to fix things, we have to have a crew of 4, and that crew of 4 cannot be intermingled with what we have.
Minimum of 3, preferably 4.
Yeah.
So in like a storm, power lines are down, chaos.
Yep.
We can have 3 dudes. Okay.
But the rest of it was right, we could intermingle with.
Yeah.
With other contractors. Okay, so are we clear as mud? Jordan,
Am I budgeting for a director or not?
it didn't pass. So
I can bring both options at the next meeting and see how it affects the budget and we can go from there.
And again, I know that haven't had a lot of the time to process what you and Bernard talked about on Monday, but that might also affect people's decision about whether or not we have the funds to support the utilities director, at least as it's being paid for and from the electric fund.
Correct, but I'm getting the sense that having the funds for it isn't the question. It's really the philosophy of how the department should be structured.
Well, I think that, it wouldn't maybe hurt to have that, to show that we could afford it,
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Righty. So correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say let's say council approves the foreman and lineman. And they're able to get a bunch of work done. Preventative work, so that when the storm comes, contract services, we're able to save money.
Right.
Yeah.
In that part of the budget. Now moving forward, we have more money to pay a utilities director because from my personal opinion, it is about the money. It's not about the philosophy. So it would be a step-by-step process. You get the lineman and the foreman. Have them do all the preventative stuff that they are able to do. Save money on contract services because there'll be less likely of a chance that limbs will fall or whatever. That money that we save on contract services, we're able to look at a following budget. Utilities will have a better idea of how much they're able to save. I know he said he didn't want to cut that budget. We're not cutting that budget, but moving forward with the full crew, he might feel more comfortable to cut that budget, and then that can go to utilities director.
Okay, is there anything else we can work on tonight?
I don't think so, no.
Last question.
No.
I know that last time, what did we decide on the East City property and you were gonna get back to us, I think, on some rates?
I did, yes, yep.
Are we gonna have a discussion about that?
Yep.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I don't know why you're needing to approve a four-man electrical crew. That's already approved in the city code. It's just hiring them. That's the problem, is being able to get 4 linemen or four-man utility crew.
agreed. No, there was just a question about how many we had to have to be able to respond to emergencies. That's all. So we need to see if we can. You're saying Tuesday?
Yes, so scheduling. This needs to be approved by June 30th. The next council meeting is June 23rd, which gives this committee a deadline of November 11th, a week from today.
How about June
June 11th to get it done, to get it noticed in the newspaper for the public hearing at council. We can push it back a week. It'll be in front of council on June 30th, the last day we can do it. That'll give this committee 2 extra meetings on the 16th and the 18th. So I'd like to just tentatively schedule, to schedule the 10th and 11th next week, that's Tuesday and Wednesday. And then tentatively schedule, if needed, the 16th and 18th the fall.
And just so you know, I teach Tuesday nights, but I could be.
Yeah, we have to. I mean, at this point, we have to. There's no way around it. This committee needs to meet Tuesday and Wednesday next week.
And then tentatively, you said the following week as well?
Monday, the 16th and Wednesday, the 18th. The port's in here on the 17th and we can't, I mean, I guess we can take them out.
16th and 18th are coming to us.
Yes, assuming we're not done by the 11th. I think we made some good progress and we can get it wrapped up, but things happen.
Because there's not really, I mean, we can't do capital reserve tonight.
We can. I don't really have any. The big thing out of it is out of the sewer fund, which needs to be clarified. I don't really have anything else being spent out of it other than a small trailer, public works supply.
Okay, so can we get debt services and then we would just basically have to go over all of the departments again, right?
Yeah, update I need to rehash or re-update the admin fee and we can go back through.
And tourism, I mean, do we feel confident we can take a couple of minutes to look at the tourism budget?
Up to you all.
Decide on that one tonight? No?
If we have to meet Tuesday and Wednesday. That'd be better. Either that or need a break.
You need,
And that'll extend your time.
you need a break right now,
Why don't we just do it Tuesday and Wednesday?
All right. All right. I tried.
Yeah, no, I get it, yeah.
Right, okay, so we will continue the meeting till Tuesday, June 10th.
At 6:30, yeah. And I will update all these to you and try and get it to you before the weekend as much as I can, so you have time to review it.
And June 11th also.
Yes, yeah, we will notice both of those tomorrow.
Madam Chair,
That the city council take a look at the position of administrator. And make a recommendation to the budget committee as far as whether or not we should hire that position.
To
Put
hire
that in the
the
budget.
utility budget,
Yeah, but I really confused as to why you all haven't had an opportunity to discuss it before it came in a budget.
well, it has been discussed, that there's a new council and the budget you have to find money, you have to be able to find money for it. So I think. Until there's the money there. We can't have the discussion, but at the same time, when the money's there, then it seems like the discussion's already been had and we're gonna go ahead and hire the person, so. I don't, there's, it's, yeah, hard, it's hard to know which comes first, the chicken or the egg. Bernard,
thank you, Chair. So in addition to reviewing the property fees that we discussed and these items we discussed tonight, I would like there to be a conversation regarding the code enforcement officer, if at all possible, and seeing if we discuss some of those potential savings that I sent in an email to the city administrator to try to find the funds to reinstill that position. I would hope we can maybe have that conversation at one of these last two meetings. That's my request. Thank you.
okay. So, meeting adjourned, or not adjourned?
Yep.
Let's continue.
Continue to.
Yep.
June 10th.
Thank you, everybody.